This is the while loop counter worked example. The sub-goals for evaluating a loop are: first, diagram which statements go together, then determine what the start condition of the loop is, determine the termination condition of the loop, then trace the loop. For every iteration of the loop, write down the values. Here's the problem that we want to solve. Given this code, what is the output? The first sub-goal is to diagram which statements go together. So we want to diagram which statements of the loop go together. One of the reasons for doing this is that loops without curly braces have a default of only one statement. So we want to ensure that we're looking at only the statements that go with the loop. In this case, here are the statements that go with the while loop. The second sub-goal is to determine what the start condition is. In this case, the start condition are the two variables initialized before the loop. Counter and total both start at 0. The third sub-goal is to determine the termination condition. In this case, the loop will continue as long as counter is less than 50. The opposite of less than 50 means that whenever counter is greater than or equal to 50, the loop will terminate. Now, sub-goal 4, we want to trace the loop. In this case, we want to trace the values for counter and total. So we make a list of what the values of counter will be. We can see that it starts at 0, and in the last statement of the loop, it is incremented by 1. So in this case, you can see that counter is counting up from 0 to 9. Every time we go through the loop, it determines whether or not counter is evenly divisible by 5. Counter mod 5 is equal to 0. If it is, then counter, the value in counter, is added to the value in total. 0 is evenly divisible by 5. 0 mod 5 is 0. So we add 0 to the total, but it stays at 0. 1, 2, 3, and 4 are not divisible by 5. 5 is divisible by 5, so we add the value 5 to total, and now total becomes 5. 6, 7, 8, and 9 are not divisible by 5, so total stays at 5. As we continue to trace the loop, when counter becomes 10, 10 is evenly divisible by 5, therefore we add 10 to the amount in total, so total now becomes 15. Now we're beginning to see a pattern. Basically, every time counter is evenly divisible by 5, we're going to add that value of counter to total. So when counter is 15, we add 15 to total to become 30. When counter is 20, we add 20 to the value in total to become 50. When counter is 25, we add 25 to the value of total, bringing us to 75. When counter is 30, we add 30 to the value in total, which now brings total to 105. As we continue, we can see that eventually the output is when counter reaches 45, we will add 45 to total, which brings us to 225. When counter becomes 50, we exit the loop. Remember, the termination condition was when counter is greater than or equal to 50. So the output that would be printed on the last line of this code is 225. That is the end of this worked example.